Welcome to Tuesday Truth. Start where you are. That's where your flow begins. First of all, excuse me for the incognito sunglasses. I just came back from the eye doctors and my pupils are around this little marbles here and the light is killing me. However, have you ever started working on one thing and suddenly you realize that it's becoming something much bigger than you originally planned? Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world today. It's Michelle, your AGE-GILITY specialist. Well, that seems exactly where I am right now. I've been spending a lot of time writing my next book. Yeah. And once again, I found myself slipping into what I've talked about for years, flow. You know, that wonderful place when you sit down to work for just a little while and then you look up and somehow several hours have just disappeared like that. Meanwhile, the laundry's still waiting and the dishwasher hasn't emptied itself, and not that mine's even working properly. And apparently, nobody has invented a self-cleaning desk. But I'm writing, I'm creating, and I'm in my flow. That has been especially interesting. What has been especially interesting right now is that somewhere along the line, without even planning it, my books turned into a Start Where You Are series. In my first book, in this emerging series, Start Where You Are, Gentle Home Exercises for Seniors, began with a very simple idea. You don't have to be stronger, younger, fitter, or more flexible before you begin moving your body. You just simply start where you are. Then came Start Where You Are, Declutter Your Home, Declutter Your Life. That book grew out of another place where I found myself needing to take my own advice. Decluttering can feel overwhelming, especially when you're surrounded by years of memories, sentimental belongings, boxes we moved from one house to another or one place to another, and things we kept because, well, we're convinced, well, we might need them someday. Someday, apparently, has a very large storage requirement. But once again, the answer wasn't to tackle the entire house in one heroic week. It was to start where I was. One drawer, one box, one decision, and one small place at a time. And now here I am working on my newest endeavor, a book about making gentle changes in existing habits, reducing sugar and highly processed foods, exploring intermittent fasting, and supporting our metabolic health and vitality as we age. And guess what? That message keeps showing up. Start where you are, not where you were at 40, not where you think you should be, not where somebody on social media tells you you ought to be, and certainly not on a Monday after a final weekend of eating everything in the refrigerator. Start where you are today. The more I write, the more I realized that these books didn't become a series because I sat down with some great publishing grand idea or strategy that I had all mapped out. They became a series because Start Where You Are is exactly what I've been doing in my own life. One movement, one decluttering, with my health, with my writing, with retirement, with discovering a new purpose, and with every pivot along the way. That philosophy is the reality in the heart of age-agility. Age-agility has never been about denying that we're getting older. It's about learning how to adapt, grow, pivot, and continue moving forward through every decade of life. We work, we work with the body we have today, with the energy we have today, with the circumstances we have today, and then take the next step. That is also when flow happens. Now, remember that Hungarian physiologist, which I can't pronounce his name, from the 1970s, still a tongue twister for me. He introduced the concept of flow as a state in which we become deeply absorbed in something meaningful and enjoyable. We lose track of time because we're fully engaged in what we're doing. And I've learned that flow doesn't always begin with some enormous goal or perfectly mapped out plan. Sometimes it just begins by showing up. You sit down, you write one page, you walk for 10 minutes, you clean out one drawer, you prepare one healthy meal, you make one phone call, you try one new thing. And somewhere between starting and continuing, momentum begins to build. And that's when we often discover something we never have planned. That's how when we discover we'd never had planned this from the beginning. My writing journey is teaching me this lesson all over again. I didn't sit down one day and said, I'm going to go and create a Start With You series. It involved. One idea led to another. One book opened the door to the next one. And suddenly I began to see a thread running through it all. Start where you are, use what you have, learn what you need, and adjust along the way. That is flow, and that's AGE-GILITY. As we grow older, I think one of the greatest things we can give ourselves is permission to stop believing and to have that we have to have everything figured out before we begin. Our goals can change, our passions can evolve, our purpose can take a few unexpected turns. Our GPS may say occasionally recalculating. Mine certainly has. But perhaps the secret isn't having a perfectly straight road ahead of us. It's because flexible is enough to follow where the road is leading. Therefore, my Tuesday truth for you today is you do not have to know exactly where you're going before you begin. Start with what interests you. Start with what your body can do. Start with what the room needs to do to have a little more breathing space. Start with one healthier choice. Start with the idea that keeps nudging you, and then pay attention. Because somewhere, when you start where you are, you discover flow that carries you somewhere you never expected to go. And that's exactly where I found myself today, still writing, still creating, still learning, still recalculating, because that to me is what living with agility is all about. Until next Tuesday, trust your truths, find your flow, and remember, you don't have to be perfect to start. You just have to start where you are. Bye for now. You know where to find me. See you next week.